Welcome to Russell Jones Speaks, where we explore big issues that matter to parents, grandparents, and kids. We tackle intergenerational issues. Everything that affects parents, grands, and children is on the table. That includes health and fitness, relationships, attitude, family unity, vision, adversity, God, and anything else that might arise. The goal is for you to take away something that you can use in your life immediately. I really want to help improve the lives of families, especially those with 10 to 13-year-old middle schoolers. Let's talk. Go to russelljonespeaks.com to get an amazing gift and then jump on a call with me. Today, I have with me Devin Schubert. Devin is an internationally acclaimed coach, speaker, international best-selling author, and multiple award-winning entrepreneur. His journey to success has been nothing short of remarkable, as evidenced by his appearances on 2 TV reality shows for entrepreneurs, where he stood out among over 100,000 applicants. In addition to his television success, Devin is a prolific coach after launching his Influence Academy, imparting cutting-edge strategies and transformative wisdom on being influential, especially through social media and stages. Sharing stages with greats like Eric Thomas, Pat Quinn, and Willie Robertson are just a few of his memorable moments. His newest show, called School of Influence, goes right along with his mission to help 1 million people share their stories across media in his legacy project called Stories to Stages. None of this compares to his personal journey of adopting 3 children, which highlights his profound dedication to transforming lives both professionally and at home. So welcome, Devin.
Hey, Russell, thank you so much for allowing me to be here. It's an honor to be here with you.
Hey, listen, we've known each other for a while now, but I think for our listeners today, I'd just like you to just kind of jump into your story. And that part where you came home from a long weekend, and just let's just start there. Let's let be the jumping off point today.
Yeah. Well, being a youth pastor for almost 7 years at the time, I was away on a trip doing an evangelistic conference with some of the teenagers at my church that I was working with. And we had just an amazing weekend. And a lot of the kids came to know Christ. And then we went out and we evangelized on the street. And I remember there at that conference, they had us as youth pastors stand on top of this chair. And then they had all the kids come and lay hands on us. And they said, and they just said, these people give everything they have to the teenagers and to you guys as kids. And we just want you to spend time praying for them. And I'll tell you, that was one of the most impactful moments that I've felt in all of my life, was just my teenage kids of my youth group praying for me. And it was just like, wow, what an aha moment. Like, I was in tears. And so we come home from that, and I pull into my road, get up to my driveway, and I recognize that there's a vehicle in the driveway. I was like, this is weird. It's not my vehicle. I don't know whose vehicle this is. And I go inside the house, and I find my wife at the time with her boss. And it was, you talk about going from very high to my life could end right now. Like, this is terrible.
Oh man, I can't imagine what that must have been like.
Yeah, it was so difficult to, think of this forever family that we had. We had 3 adopted children. 2 of the boys that we adopted were from foster care. And, here we are. I'm in the ministry, pretty successful in ministry. And it blew my mind. And there were red flags beforehand, and we had talked about them. And but ultimately, Rush, she wanted to move up in her job. She wanted to move up in her job. And so she took the choice, and that's what she chose. And she chose to ultimately stay with him. And I remember that, for the first probably 3 to 4 months, we tried, more me than her, to figure it out. But she would be with him until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then come home, sleep for a couple of hours, and then go to work. And ultimately, I just said, "Yeah, this isn't gonna work. Like,
No, I
this
don't
isn't
think
gonna
so.
work." And so she got her own apartment and started living with him. And so the kids were just devastated, and it was very, very difficult time for us all.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So, okay. So, were the kids with you, or was it the classic back and forth with the kids in terms of custody?
Yeah, so a lot of times right away at the beginning, the kids were mostly with me. I had done most of the parenting in our marriage, anyways. But then we ended up doing a 50-50 switch, and it worked out fairly well until she decided that it was the right time to introduce. So our daughter is her biological daughter, and I adopted her when we had gotten married. And at that point, she decided it was the right time to reintroduce her biological father into the picture. And so, talk about confusion for a 9-year-old girl who had this dad who's raised her since she was two and was everything to me, and I was everything to her. And then reintroduce her biological dad who lives across the country. And so she started to get angry at me, taking it out on me. And so our daughter ended up living mostly with her mom for a while. And then the boys, we shared 50-50 for a while, until one of our sons, Jacoby, who was probably 7 or so at that time, and he began getting pretty physically aggressive. And over a 2-year period, he got so physically aggressive and so much acting out, that she ended up not being able to handle him. And it was our relationship was that I was very nurturing and she was not at all. And so one of his triggers, because he had prior abuse, prior mental health, and prior struggles that he went through, um, he could not be physically touched, or he would just explode. And so she wouldn't honor that. She wouldn't recognize that. And so if he got upset, she would grab him, ask him to go to his room, and he would just haul out and punch her, or he'd punch the wall, or any of those types of things. And so it was a December morning, and I was in a deer stand, and I was 3.5 hours away, and I get this phone call, and she's like, "I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I kicked him out. He's never coming back. Come and get him." And I said, What are you talking about?" And she said, "Yep, no socks, no shoes, no coat. I kicked him out of the house, locked the door behind him. He's yours. Take care of it. Whatever. I don't care
He
what you
was
have to do."
9 years old at this point.
He was 9 years old at the time. Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. And so I
All right.
said, I'm I'm in a deer stand. Like, I'm 3.5 hours away. There's nothing I can do. I don't even have a vehicle here because I was here with a group of guys. And so she called the police, and they brought him back. And then the next day I went and I picked him up, and he never went back for the next number of years, even though we only lived 7 miles away. um, and his aggression started to get worse. His other outbursts started to get even worse. And when it comes to teenagers, a lot of times you'll see that they either act out when they're at home, or they may act out when they're at school. Not usually both. And so it's they trust one place or another more for one reason or another. Not that it's right or wrong, but for me, it was he would act out both places because he trusted me enough to know that he was safe to act out, and he would act out at school because he just didn't want people yelling at him or touching him or telling him what to do. And so, um,
Did
over the
anything?
next
Did
5.
anything prepare? Did any? I'm sorry to interrupt, but did anything prepare you for this? Like in your previous life or whatever, in terms of? I know you worked with teens and you worked with kids, and um, but like at this level, I mean, were you getting help, professional help, or were you community help? What was going on like at that point?
Yeah. After the divorce, I was also a social worker. I had been a social worker across the state of Iowa for 15 years. So I had a lot of
Oh, okay.
resources, a lot of connections in the community. The church was still there in certain circumstances, but they didn't fully understand. I was a leader in the church, and yet I'm going through a divorce with an affair. And so that was a touchy subject with the church. And then when
Sure.
it comes to mental health and trauma, churches really don't understand that a lot of times. And so they didn't really know how to be able to best assist. They were there to support when I needed it, somebody to listen to, but there wasn't any type of solutions. And we had been through every type of counseling up to this point to try and help, to try and vocalize. And counseling's great. Therapy is awesome. I believe even now I still go to different counseling sessions as needed, because we need a safe place to be able to release and process things in a healthy way. But there's also times to where there's just cookie cutter answers. And for my son and I, there wasn't cookie cutter answers. There wasn't triggers. There wasn't anything on the outside or inside that we could find that would cause these types of outbursts. And so it began to be a very, very lonely, lonely road. And for 3 years there, it was terrible. I continually lost relationships because we would go someplace and he would act out, and those people didn't feel safe with us coming around anymore. Or people would come over to the house and he would act out, and there'd end up. I mean, could you imagine? I remember the last time at my house, we were having a big dinner, and everybody knew, the situations that were going on. And I remember that we were all sitting around the dinner table. There's probably 15, 20 of us. And Jacoby got up and he went to go get, I don't know, I think he grabbed like a whole plate full of cookies. It was something like that. Okay, buddy, we're not going to do that. And when I said, no, we're not going to do that, he threw the plate at me and charged at me. And so it ended up being a huge restraint hold right then and there, because he was trying to punch me, he was trying to kick me. And everybody was just kind of freaking out, not knowing what to do. And my friends ended up having to call the police. And so you can imagine, other people witnessing that and then being like, yeah, I don't think I want to go around there anymore.
Sure.
And so it really did. It really was a hard circumstance to be able to walk in and around and through myself and with my son.
Yeah. Goodness. All right. So now, obviously, you're bringing all this stuff into you, working with him, trying to work with him. What then? There was a big event, right? Like that really, like
Hmm.
just took stuff to another level, as they say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, before we even got to a whole nother level, we ended up. So God had told me that my one and only assignment was my son. And for me, when it comes to my purpose and my lifestyle and living it for God, uh, that meant that everything had to align with that. And so when I didn't have any resources, I had no community, I had no family left there where we were at. I knew I needed to seek out higher support. And so I felt led to move to Des Moines. We're in Iowa. And so I moved 3.5 hours away to the capital, to where I believed that there was going to be more help. And I believed that God told me that if I moved, he would step in and he would help. And I needed to be obedient. And so that's what we did. We packed up everything that we had, everything that we knew, and we left. We left my other kids, and we left our friends. We left everything to go start new. And talk about a hard decision of, you know, feeling like you have to choose between your children. And while that's not really what happened, it is logistically what happened. And my other kids understood, they got it, but it wasn't easy. And so we moved, and over the next year, I spent close to 100 grand trying to get help from anybody in the nation to help us. We'd been through court systems. We'd been through the Department of Human Services. We'd been through everything, and nobody would help us. It was getting to be where there was restraint holds every single day. The acting out was starting to get aggressive to other people. He then started to run away, and then he started to vandalize things, and then it was running away for the whole night. And just to give you an image of what this kind of looks like, I would have to restrain him at least 5 times a week. And it would be between a 15 and a 30-minute restraint until the police could get there. And then it would take between 5 and 6 police officers to hold him down on the ground to get him cuffed. And so imagine, the trauma that he's going through in that. But in the meantime, I'm being traumatized.
Sure.
In that I have 27 cameras in and outside of my home just to keep us safe, to keep him safe, but also to keep me safe for when he went to school and said, "Oh, dad did this. Oh, dad did that." Well, I got the cameras to show you that I'm not beating my kid. I'm not doing anything wrong. And so it was just this turmoil of back and forth and not sleeping. I was diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder because of the lack of sleep, because of all the issues that we were having. He started threatening to kill me. And it was one night where he ran away, and he ran away, and then we searched for him for about 6 hours. And finally they found him after he ditched his bike. He started running down the street with one shoe. He lost one shoe somewhere, and the other shoe flew off while he was running down the middle of the street. And this is like a decent sized highway. And finally they got him off the road, and he climbed up this tree. And they call me and they say, "Hey, we found him. You need to come help us." So I drove there. And as I drove there, I knew that something was just different. Like, man, this is extreme. I get there, and there's about 20 officers with their flashlights shining up in this tree. Like, I used to go raccoon hunting. That's what it looked like. It looked like they were just standing there with flashlights, shining the coon, waiting for it to come down. And so they're just like, "You got to come down." And I was like, "You know what? Forget it." I took off my flip flops and I started to climb up the tree, and not knowing any idea of what I was going to do once I got up there. But I started climbing up the tree. He started climbing up even higher. And so here we are, probably 30, 40 feet up in this tree. And I get above him and I say, "Hey, buddy, we got to go down. Like, we got to go down." And so I just slowly started to finagle my way down, as he would slowly go down underneath me, because he didn't have a choice. I was coming down, and I was kind of coming over top of him, and so he had to be able to move in order to keep his footing. And finally, he got down to the bottom branch, and the police officers grabbed him, and they were able to put him into handcuffs and get him onto a hospital bed and stabilize him. And this was the first time in my life that I was actually afraid, because he went from the police car area to the ambulance. And when he did, they said, "Do you want to ride in the ambulance with him to the hospital?" And as he rolled by, he sat up a little bit and he looked at me. And Russell, his eyes were the blackest of black, of darkness that I've ever seen in my entire life. And he said, "I'm going to effing kill you." And that was the first time. I mean, he's threatened me. He's, come at me, all these things before. That was the first time that I was like, "Oh, snap. He's serious right now." And I recognized him, like, "Oh man, this is real." No, I don't think I'm gonna ride in the ambulance with him. No, no, I'll drive. It's okay. And so I followed him to the hospital, and literally 3 hours later, he was fine. It's like, "Okay, yeah, let's go home." And there was no support, there was no help. Doctors wouldn't send us anywhere, wouldn't give us any treatment, nothing. "Sorry, there's no place that will accept him." And so we'd go home. So it was about 3 weeks later, Russell, that I made my first mistake. 5 years I've had him one-on-one, and I never made a mistake. I had you talk about military veterans that come home and are so hyper vigilant that they know where everything is at. They know where all their surroundings all the time. That's how I lived my life. And I let the dog, I was cutting up chicken for dinner, and I was going to let the dog outside. I come back in, and I recognized that the knife I was cutting the chicken with was not in my hand. It was supposed to be on the counter where I was cutting out the chicken, and it was not there. And so I knew that he had it, and he was in his room. I asked him, I said, "Hey, buddy, did you happen to take the knife for the kitchen?" He said, "Yep, and I'm going to kill you." And so
Oh,
you can
Lord.
imagine all those thoughts, all that fear, no sleep, all the trials and things that we had gone through. And now it's come to this one mistake. I just gave my son the weapon to do what he said he's going to do. And so I called the police and I said, "Hey, you guys are going to have to come help." So they came and they walked in the door and they said, "Okay, so what do you want us to do?" "Well, go in and get the knife." And they said, "Well, it's not an imminent risk." And I said, "Okay, well, we can either make it an imminent risk by me going in there and getting it, or I'll go sit outside, tell him I'm outside. He'll give you the knife because I'm the problem, not you guys. And you guys can take him to the hospital like we do every other time." And so we did that. And, I know, like, I wish that a lot of counselors and therapists and people would, when their parents are really interactive with their kids, when they really want to help their children, listen to the parents. Because I know my
Right.
son. I knew what was going to work and what was not. And so it did. It worked. They walked in. He handed him the knife. He literally walked out to the police car and drove to the hospital. And that night I
When
followed him. And yeah.
when they when you said it a couple times, like, okay, so he had to get picked up, handcuff him, um, and they would stabilize him. What did they do to stabilize him? Was it like
Yeah.
drugs or something, or?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, in order to stabilize him, what they would do is they would either handcuff him like to the hospital bed so that he couldn't get up, so that they didn't have to continually chase him or run or anything like that. They may put him inside of the police car, but most of the time, when he would get, if the hospital had to, or if the ambulance had to come and actually check him out, they would stabilize him by just either strapping him down or cuffing him to the hospital bed.
Okay, so it was stabilized would be like restraints. They weren't. Was he on any kind of medications or anything, or like
Oh,
ongoing?
we had tried so many medications, but the only time that they ever gave him any type of like, it's not a tranquilizer shot, but to be able to calm him down immediately, they only did that twice, and that was
Okay.
at the hospital.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt, but I was just kind of like, okay,
No,
stabilize. I was like, what is this? What's a stabilizer? Yes, sir.
no, that's good. That's a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before, so that's
Okay.
good. That's good.
Okay.
um, so this time, when they started taking him to the hospital, and I followed in my truck like I normally do, I knew that something was different. And this time I thought like this was going to be a breakthrough. Like this was something that was like, how can they not help him when he's like threatening to kill me and he has a weapon? Like, come on. And so I go into the hospital. They won't let me see him because he's still actively threatening to kill me. And so I go sit in my room, which is, they might as well put my name tag on this room by now because it should have been my office there. And so I'm sitting in this private waiting room, and the nurse comes in and she says, "So what happened this time?" And that's the last thing I remember, because what I remember next was me waking up in a hospital bed with needles in me, and I'm shaking convulsively. And they're telling me that he's awake, he's awake, he's awake. And they don't know what's wrong with me. And so they started asking, what happened, what's going on. And the only thing I could say to them was check my Amen Clinic records, because my son Jacoby and I had been checked at the Dr. Daniel Amen Clinic in Chicago, and that was about 3 years prior to that. and they did what was called a brain SPECT scan. And what that does is it checks your all your brain waves and how they send, how they receive, and they saw so much trauma in his brain. And then they said, "Well, Devin, we want to check you." I'm like, "I'm fine. I'm a man, right? I don't got nothing wrong with me." And so they checked me out, and the doctor said, "If you don't get serious help, like him not being in the house or somebody living with you 24/7 in the next 6 months, you're not going to make it." And this was 3 years prior to me passing out. And I said, will you go to court? Will you fight with me? And she's like, "Absolutely. I'd love to." And so we went to court. She testified, and they said, "So where's your credentials from?" And she said, "Well, Chicago, Illinois." Like, "Yeah, this is a court in Iowa, so we're not going to recognize your statements because you're not licensed in the state of Iowa." I'm like, "This is an internationally credited whole entire operation, one of the top-notch places in the world, and you're not going to recognize? Give me a break." So they ended up looking at those files, and her results were that my brain and my nervous system were starting to compete. And what had happened that night was that my brain and my nervous system completely stopped communicating because of the trauma that I had endured. And they diagnosed me with a thing called trauma shock. And they they asked me, they said, "So we're going to send you to a residential treatment facility so you can have 24/7 care, because at this point it looks like you're not going to make it another 3 months." I'm like, "What?
Oh my
What?"
goodness.
Like, "Yeah, we're giving you 3 months left to live, and you need 24/7 care because you won't be able to walk, you won't be able to do anything on your own." And I said,
Wow.
"So wait, I fought for 5 years for my son to get help, or I would die, and then who would take care of my son? And now you want me to go to a treatment facility? No, that's not happening."
Oh, wow.
And so my son ended up going to a shelter. They ended up getting him help about 3 days after that. And I went to go stay at a friend's house. And Russell, I'm telling you that it was so dark. I was so lost. I slept for 18 out of 24 hours a day. I
Oh
would be
man.
up having a conversation for maybe 5 minutes, and I would collapse on the floor, and my friends would have to take me back to my room.
Now,
I
were you getting
I
any
had
other type of counseling at this point? Was it like from the church or from the hospital people, whatever? This was just you and
no,
your friends.
it
Okay.
was just me and them because there was nothing anybody else could do, and I had nobody else. Even my family wouldn't come around us anymore. And so these friends were friends that I had helped raise up, and amazing people that I had done life with. Gone through some hard times with them, and so just for them to accept me, and I mean, it's not that people didn't love me, but they had no idea what to do with us, and I don't blame them. Like, put switch the roles, I understand, and I have no hard feelings against anybody in those times. Um, and so here I am. I'm basically on my own death row, right? And um, I remember laying in my bed one night and just thinking, what do I have left to live for? Like, God, you had told me that my one and only son, or my one and only assignment was my son. Well, he's not with me anymore. So he's taken care of. So that assignment seems done. And my other kids, well, they're with their mom, and they're okay. I mean, not the best, but they're good. And so what do I have left? I have no ministry, I have no business, I have no money. Well, I mean, I do. I have $100,000 debt, and I mean, God can take care of that some other way. Um, and so I laid there in bed, and I'm like, "God, just take me home. Like, I'm done. I've done nothing. I've got nothing left."
Wow. That's that's an end point, after especially after years of being in the Word and being around Christians and um, to get to that place where you just don't feel like there's anything else. I don't know. And how old were you at this point?
This would have been 4 years ago now. So 37.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, just think about the difficulties that parenting is on its own. Think about, how difficult certain kids can be, and other kids are, don't have many flaws at all. And so every child has their own ups and downs and positives and struggles and all those types of things. And we as parents, we get to learn and grow as we go through it all. And I think I learned during this time, Russell, that I read this book by Danny Silk, and I believe it was the one called Loving on Purpose. And it was all about the way that God loves me is the way that I need to love my kids. The way that God feels about me is the way that I need to feel about my kids. The way that the Father has grace on me is the way that I need to have grace on my kids. And that took me to a whole different level of understanding the Father's love for my son. While everybody else called him a monster and told me to drop him off at the police station and never pick him up, just kick him out like his mom did, I was like, my father would never say that to me. And so I got to recognize, and the Lord just showed me how to love people spirit to spirit, not flesh to flesh, soul to soul, imperfection to imperfection. I got to see past the behaviors. I got to not put band-aids on the behaviors to rip off and just re-wound again. I got to see him for who he truly, truly was and who God created him to be. And so people will be like, wow, I don't know how you can do that. I can't. I can't. It's only God through me that brought me to this spot. And it's only God through me that he said that if I moved to Des Moines, he would take care of it. And yet here I am now, lying in my friend's, in my room at my friend's house, and I'm lying in the bed and I'm ready to give it all up. And I said, God, I'm done. Take me home. And I remember that night, I, I was just saying that prayer, and I remember lifting my head up a little bit, and I felt this peace come into the room, and it was an overwhelming peace of like, whoa, like a rushing wind of peace coming into the room. And when I sat my head up a little bit, I saw this silhouette of a man come walking in the room, pitch dark in the room, but I saw the silhouette, but it was like a white outline come walking around the foot of my bed up to my head, and it was Jesus. And
That's cool.
Jesus said, Devin, it's not time for you to come home yet. You have a legacy to leave. You have a story to tell, and you're going to go to the nations and you're going to share your story. And I said, I don't want to. I don't want to. I've given everything I have. I got nothing left. And he said, but I want you to share your story. I need you to share your story. And I said, okay, I will. Let's do this. And then he said the word but. You know that word but, Russell? Like, it means that you have something in your mind of what's about ready to happen. And there's about ready to be a big old pivot happen in this conversation. He said,
Right.
but you're going to go through the process. I was like, what? No, 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 no. I want one of these types of
Yeah.
healings, the
Instant.
instant healing.
Sure.
And he said, Devin, if you get an instant healing, it's going to be completely different. If you go through the process, you'll be able to help thousands, millions of more people by going through the process, because not many people, maybe 1%, get that instant healing. And that's
Right.
okay. And you want to know what the Lord has shown me? A lot of people don't necessarily get that instant healing because they will learn and grow and step into their character so much more by going through the process, because God is a jealous God that wants us to grow and step into the fullness with him, intimacy with him, reliance on him, instead of just getting that instant healing, which is great. I definitely would take it at any point.
Right. And
But
I mean,
God is God.
that
He
was,
can do what he wants.
when he was walking the earth, that's what Jesus, I mean, it was selective, right? He didn't just blanket heal everybody, right? And there was a purpose to the ones that were instantly healed and the ones that had to go through steps like you're talking about. Very cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So over the 3 years prior to this, I had been given this word from stage, and I'm not sure if like the listeners understand a little bit about what prophetic words are, but it's somebody explaining from stage, you know, kind of what they hear from God. And so from this stage, people had given me this word of, I see you as a grave digger. Does that make any sense to you? And every time, I mean, I'm in a crowd with hundreds of people. I'm like, no. What? Why? No. Gross. Yuck. No. I don't want to dig people out of the grave. That's wrong. Uh, and so here Jesus is in my room, and he's telling me that I'm going to go through the process. And he said, Devin, I'm anointing you with the grave digger anointing. And I'm like, there it is again. Okay, if Jesus is saying it, okay, tell me what that means. And I'm not like the most intelligent person, so I like people need to use 2-syllable words or less, and they need to explain it to me like I'm a 4-year-old. So help me tell me a little bit more about the grave digger anointing.
Picks and shovels.
And so he told me, he said, I'm anointing you with the same anointing that came upon me when I raised Lazarus from the dead. That you're going to pull hopes and dreams and life out of people, to bring them out of the grave and into life abundantly. You're gonna do that physically, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. You're gonna pull. And what he showed me is, he said, you're gonna grab inside of their spirit the same way that I saw my son. You're gonna grab their spirit that's perfect and aligned with their spirit. You're gonna grip them together. You're gonna pull it out, and you're gonna show them, this is who God said you are. That's what the grave digger anointing was. And I was like,
Powerful.
whew, so good. And so Jesus and I started to go on a journey. Over the next 4 months, we went on this journey. I went to a camp, and I stayed in the basement of this camp lodge. And through there, I went out to the woods. I would lay in the bed, and there was the owner of the camp was living in the space above me, so he could help with whatever I needed. But I literally journaled for 4 months of just my intimate conversations with the Father, with Jesus, with Holy Spirit, of what that all got to look like. And it took me to a whole new level of understanding the Father's heart, understanding the Father's heart to carry a true Father's heart to release, not just for my own kids, but to people all over the world.
Sweet. Really nice. All right. So, okay. So, all right. So you're in the basement journaling. What happens next? I mean, but are you in any contact with your son at this point?
No contact.
Okay.
He ended up going about 9 hours away to a treatment facility in Missouri. And at that time, there was this wonderful thing called COVID that just happened. And so now, after spending 5 years one-on-one with my son, now I can't even see him because of COVID. And talk about like withdrawals of like, man, I'm used to having this kid next to me at all times, and now there's nothing. But God gave me the grace to be able to work through this, and I processed through it. And after 4 months, I went in and got rechecked, and all my scans, everything was completely healed. And God told me about His redeeming love, and all that CPTSD, all that hypervigilance that I was walking in the natural, God had redeemed in the spiritual. And so now, instead of me being, so super cautious of like where the silverware is, where do I need to sit when I walk into a room? Where is everybody? Now I can start to feel and see things more in the spirit realm, to be able to talk to people, to communicate with them, to love them, as a father, to see them the way that God sees them. And it was such a great redemption opportunity for me to be able to walk in that and to be able to help other people see who God has called them to be. And so after the scans, after all that, that's when I knew that I needed to begin to earn some income because everything was gone. And so I started jumping into the entrepreneurial journey of helping people as Coach Gravedigger at the time to be able to live out their hopes and dreams of all the things that they had been called to.
Okay, so before you go any further with this, I have to hear the orange story, because people refer to you in that context, right? Because I people that are watching this for the first time, well, if you're just listening, Devin is wearing this bright orange blazer jacket, and I've seen him in orange shoes. I've seen him orange. So what's the story behind
Everything
that?
orange.
Oh, orange coffee cup. What's up with that?
Yeah, most people who know me know that I love stories, and I love storytelling is what I do. And then they ask me about the orange, and they're expecting this extravagant story. I'm so excited to tell you. Well, I decided not to really just craft something super amazing. It was my high school colors, and my high school colors were orange and black, and we're in the top 5 in the world for the most unique mascot. The most unique mascot. We are the Freeport Pretzels. Talk about intimidation coming to town, Russell. The Freeport Pretzels are coming to town, baby.
Oh Lord! Did you play sports?
I did. I played basketball a little bit, and then I injured my knee and ended up having reconstructive surgery on my knee my freshman year. And so that's kind of how it started. Was I bought my first pair of orange basketball shoes. I'm like, this is awesome. And then as I got growing up and doing church ministry and traveling around and speaking, and then, getting into leadership stuff and entrepreneurial stuff, people are like, yeah, you might want to just stick with the black and blue, to fit in and, look professional. And Russell, I tried that. I tried to fit in with the high execs and all that stuff. And you know what? It wasn't me. It wasn't me. And so
Right.
somebody sent me this picture one time of this orange blazer. And I was like, oh, snap, that is me. And so I went immediately and I got it. I think I paid like $300 for it. I had never spent that type of money. I didn't care because I was like, this is me. And I'll tell you that putting on that orange jacket at the time, it wasn't like everything orange. Putting
Right.
on that orange jacket was like Superman putting on his cape. It was like I was turning from Clark Kent to this Superman that could stand up and do anything that God called me to be. Why? I believe that God brought orange into my life to stand in the fullness of my identity because I'm uniquely and creatively made just like everybody else, but specific to me. And so
Right.
now when people see orange, that's why I have cups. That's why I have people send me orange stuff. I get stuff in the mail. I got an orange hammock outside because somebody found it on Amazon and sent it to me for my birthday one year. But they don't only think of orange and think of Devin Schubert.
No,
They do. But they
they
think
do.
about Devin Schubert as a father. They think about my story. And so
Right.
orange is a brand. Brand is so important to be able to know who is the person behind the brand. And I absolutely love it. Wherever I go, I went to Best Buy to get a different computer this weekend. And this lady came up to me and she said, orange shoes, orange truck. Do I know you from Facebook? I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know many people around me. Like,
Right.
and I was like,
Well, where we live here in South Carolina, we're not far from Clemson University, so there's a lot of orange here.
uh,
But you take it to a whole other level. But it's awesome. It's very cool. And one other thing I need to know about too, before we get back into something serious, is the I forget where I was reaching out to you, and there was video footage of you on inline skates, I think it
Yeah,
was,
yeah,
or was it a skateboard?
yep,
You were doing like cartwheels or something. Yeah,
yep,
just
yep.
is
Roller skates,
is
quad
that
skates.
is that a is I mean not I mean you're a fit, strong looking guy. You don't look like the prototypical um, skater backflip cartwheel guy. How did that come about?
Yeah,
But
so when I was in high school and college, I was a manager at a roller rink, and we
ah,
really wanted it to grow. And so one of the things that I did is I learned how to what we call jam skate. And so it's really dance on skates. I could break dance. I had a couple of partners, and then we had a team. And so we would travel around and do competitions for this jam skating. And
okay.
that was what you saw was a video from a year ago. And my daughter was in town with her boyfriend, and she said, "Dad, there's we should go skating." And I said, "Yeah, we should." She's like, "Never mind, you're too old." I said, "Forget that." So we went to a park, and I showed her I still got it. Took me a couple times, but I still got it. I could still do a cartwheel.
Yeah, there was a couple of outtakes there where I was like, look at this guy. I was showing my wife, I said, look at this guy. He's got no helmet. He's got no gear on or anything. And he's crashing and flipping and everything else. I said, this guy's dangerous. It was great. It was great. All right. So let's go. Okay. So now you're big in the online world. And so this has always been coming from my background. I started, doing, speaking in public and schools and camps and wherever else in the early '90s. So everything was in person, like at that, schlepping equipment, doing all kinds of stuff. The online world is really interesting and intriguing, and I'm just wondering in terms of making real connections. Like people will argue that you're not real you're making like virtual friends. You're connecting with virtual people, not real people. Um, how do you see that whole scene? Because it's the world we live in now, but um, in person versus online world. What are your views on that?
Hmm. Yeah, it is a whole different realm. Doing ministry for so long, that's I was spending time at the skate parks. That's what I was doing. That's how I grew ministry so big, was spending time where people were at. And now it's just the same. It's just virtual. Where are people at? People are on social media. And so I believe that, man, if some of the biggest influencers back in the day had social media, if Jesus had social media, if Mother Teresa had social media, man, think about what they did without it. And now, we have that opportunity. And so how do you differentiate between real life and virtual? Well, again, believing where the connection truly is. And it's for me, and what I train my students is it's not about a superficial, I'm just trying to get a client, I'm just trying to make an impression, I'm just trying to get a share, I'm just trying to get a like. None of that matters to me. I've never, well, I shouldn't say never. I've only gone viral a couple of times, and it wasn't me trying to do anything special because I don't care about that. What I care is about these three things. And every single person should do this when you're engaging with people and wanting to build your social media, is that you need to get them to like you, and you want to get them to like you, meet them where they're at. And so what are you going through? What are you struggling with? What are some things that are happening with you? Be relatable. So get them to like you, get them to meet them where they're at, and then don't leave them there. And so, whether that's a coaching program, whether that's just even in the conversation, like encouraging people, I send people messages all the time. I'm just like, "Hey, how's your week going? You popped into my mind," or "Hey, you popped onto my feed. How's it going?" No matter how big you are, no matter how big of a following you are, no matter how small, or single stay-at-home dad or single stay-at-home mom, like people still want to be checked on. People still want to be
Right.
cared about. And so when you do that, you form a real connection with people, just like you would if you were in person. And then when you do get to meet in person, oh my goodness, it's like you've been best friends in person forever.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So, what's the status of your son now? Um, what's the latest update on that story?
Yeah, so we've been 3.5 years now in treatment, ups and downs, and he ended up getting some charges in the middle of it, and there was a lot of rough patches. And I'll tell you that a lot of people are like, "Man, that must be so hard." And while it is hard, it has been. Have to recognize that I'm fully at peace because I know that I've given my all. Like I literally gave my son everything and he's in a safe place. I'm in a safe place. We're getting the help that we both need. And so now, 3.5 years later, it's so awesome because he's been amazing over the last almost 8 months to a year. And he's actually in the process now at 17. He just turned 17. He's in the process of coming home in the next 3 months.
Oh wow. Oh, very cool. Very very cool. The and you mentioned too he's got some aspirations of his own, entrepreneurial or just
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that I get to do is help people share their stories, to help them to build out their stories and to do it on social media, on stages and all that kind of stuff. And so I have this whole studio set up to be able to do that and to help people. And he comes home one time for a weekend visit. He's like, "Dad, are you doing reality TV again? Are you recording TV shows?" I'm like, not really to that, caliber here yet. And he's like, "Well, can I do one?" "Do one what?" He said, "Can I have my own show?" I'm like, "Well, what would you talk about?" Like, "You're introverted, he's high functioning autism, he doesn't really like people." So it's like, what would you do? Like, I'm scared right now what's gonna come out of your mouth.
right.
And he said, "No, Dad, like, I've been through so much." And he said, "I just wanna help people." He said, "I wanna help people not have to go through the things that I did." He's like, "People don't understand what it's like to go through it. People don't understand what it's like to struggle and to be aggressive and what to do in order to change it. And I want to change families' lives so that they don't have to go through the same thing I did." And it's this full circle moment of God saying, "Devin, you're doing what I called you to do and going to the nations and sharing your story. And in the meantime, I'm working on your son because your one and only assignment is your son. And you've entrusted him to me because God entrusted him to me." And so he like put his finger down and said, "Watch what I'm doing with your son." And so the full legacy of me going to the nations is still being fulfilled within my own son, not even being in my own care, not even being in my own home, him not even knowing what I'm doing. It's like, okay, all right, I see it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very cool. So, just give us a brief thing on stories to stages like that. I know it follows along with your, uh,
Mhm.
your vision, uh, but like what tech, like how's that going? Like what? Uh, explain to people just where what that's about.
Yeah, so Stories to Stages was built out of a part of that encounter with Jesus, and I was giving called a Kim 10 talk, and it's Kingdom Impact Message in 10 minutes. What is your kingdom message? It's basically a Christian version of a TEDx talk. And he took me back to that encounter with Jesus, and Jesus had said to me, um, you've given up the 99 to save the one. Now I'm going to give you the 99 to go to the nations and share your stories. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And so tell me a little bit more, because explain it like like I'm a 4-year old. And he said, no, I told you you gave up the 99 to save the one. Now I'm going to give you the 99 to go to the nations and share your stories. I'm like, wow, that's big. And so ultimately, he said that I'm going to start your legacy project. Your mission is to help 1 million people share their story across all of media. And so in March, mid March, we launched Stories to Stages. It's a full 7-day boot camp of teaching people how to be able to share their story, how to craft their story, how to write their story, how to present their story. And then you can send it in to my team, and we give you every single step, and we'll edit it, we'll publish it, we'll give you all the promotional things that you need so that your story can go to the nation. Because I know that my story is transformational, which means that what I get to do is take the seed of story inside of me and place it inside of everybody who listens. And if we could all do that, if we could all place the seed of a story of transformation inside of the social media and the media world, the world is going to be a much, much different, transformed place. And so that's what we get to do.
More compassionate, for sure. Just reflect on this a little bit. When I started with Kingdom Builders and this last year, I've really been avoiding telling my major heart story for 30 years because I compartmentalized what happened. I was telling other people's stories. I was giving snippets of my story. So now I'm telling this story. I've written about it. I'm starting to speak out about it more. The more you repeat it, I know it's. Do you have anything that you do? I'm sorry. Let me rephrase this. I'm like garbling my words. What do you do to not get caught? Like go back to that place of super pain, of super confusion, of super being lost. Like, how do you refresh yourself? What do you do not to dwell there? There's so many people, whether they tell their story or not, that dwell on that one big event. They haven't figured out how to make it into something that will bless other people, a story that will bless other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. And how I like to describe it to people is only share the parts of your story where you're healed enough to heal other people. And so when we think about where we're at in our journey, there was times where I didn't share about pieces of my divorce. Why? Because there was still resentment. There was still hurt. There was still pain there. And so instead of there being transformation for good, there would be me putting my garbage on somebody else. That's where the heaviness would come on of somebody else. And so what I encourage people is your story is still being written. Even though there's things in the past that have happened, there's still healing that is happening for those. And until you've hit the spot to where you feel like you can confidently share it, or even just to feel nervousness and anxiousness, it's okay to share that part of your story. But if you're not healed from it, be very careful sharing it. And so slowly integrate new parts into your story. For a while with my son Jacoby, I didn't know how to end. People would say, "Well, tell me about him now." Well, he just got charges. He was arrested. What do I couldn't. There was no healing in that part. And so I'd say, well, he's still just in treatment and working through the program 3 years later. So I think it's very important that you share what you're healed so you can heal other people through it.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's good. I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave it there because I think you gave us plenty of encouragement with what life throws at us and coming out the other side. And excited to have you. So, well, that's a wrap. I hope everyone enjoyed today's episode and you got some takeaways that you can use. More information on Devin Schubert is at www.stories2stages.com and will be in the notes. Please share this with your friends and don't forget all my stuff at russelljonespeaks.com. If you're a parent or a grandparent or mentor to a 10 to 13-year-old, check out our 60-day transformational interactive video series, Top Secrets of Success for Kids and Parents. It's amazing. It will equip and encourage parents and kids. Yes, topsecretsofsuccess.com. Get on our email list. Jump on a call with me. And in the words of the inimitable Hulk Hogan, say your prayers, take your vitamins, and you'll never go wrong. Then you can all go and make it a great day. Bye for now.